crew members escorted off a ship in Virginia without charges, dining rooms tilting under stormy skies, and a cruise inviting you to shed your clothes. And another shattering glass incident on a Royal Caribbean ship. As usual, it's been another crazy week in cruise news. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. And our first headline could be ripped from a thriller. On Carnival Sunshine, U.S. Customs and Border Protection boarded in Norfolk, Virginia, and escorted 4 Filipino crew members off the ship. They were accused of being part of a group chat with links to content that, let's say, is exploitive to children. The 3 men and 1 woman were never shown evidence, never charged, and were told to sign deportation paperwork or face a massive fine or jail time. They signed, their visas were revoked, and they're banned from returning to the United States for a decade. Now, advocacy groups note that each had passed background checks, yet they were denied access to legal counsel. CBP said only that the crew were found inadmissible. Now, since April, 28 people have been deported from the Norfolk port under similar circumstances. And Carnival, of course, just says they cooperate with law enforcement. But this story raises tough questions about due process and fairness. Do you think authorities handled this right in this case? Or do you think that the crew deserved a chance to clear their name? And by the way, I'll be boarding Carnival Sunshine in just a couple of days, and I hope I'm pronouncing that port name right, but that's what people online tell me is how it's pronounced. But while you ponder those big questions, let's move from legal drama to physical turbulence. What would you do if you're on a cruise and it unexpectedly tilted mid-dinner? And I'm not talking a little tilt that happens on almost every cruise. I'm talking a massive tilt that causes plates to go flying. On Carnival Panorama's Mexican Riviera sailing, wind and rain caused the ship to lean dramatically. Passengers captured video of dishes crashing, items strewn across the ship, and water even pouring from an elevator shaft while lightning flashed outside. Now, the listing was over quickly, thankfully, and the captain steered to calmer seas, and the crew tended to shaken guests. Now, such listing to such an extreme measure due to weather is extremely rare, so I hope that people don't see this and freak out. I've seen a lot of people on social media seeing this stuff and saying that this is another reason why I would never ever take a cruise, but this is so rare. And in this case, thankfully, nobody was seriously injured. Now, of course, watching a dining room tilt like this, it'll rattle even seasoned cruisers, but just remember that again, nobody was seriously hurt. This is extremely rare, and the ship was very quickly recovered. But this is always a great reminder that when you take any cruise, to pack your seasick remedies and keep an eye out on the weather forecast. And of course, I'm gonna beat this drum, always travel with your travel insurance. Now, as I mentioned, I'm heading out on a cruise in a couple days. It's looking a little iffy with hurricanes developing in the region. I'm heading to Bermuda. So I have travel insurance, so thankfully I know if something happens, I'm covered, but this is always just a good cautionary tale. And speaking of cruise drama, something that just happened, I woke up and read about this morning, is Royal Caribbean, they got another little bit of an issue with shattering glass. Now, I reported on this a lot recently, including the most recent kind of dramatic, scary incident, which was one of the water slides on Icon of the Seas shattered when somebody was going down it and he got seriously injured. But you also probably know, if you follow my channel, that Royal Caribbean just launched their newest ship, Star of the Seas. Well, I woke up this morning to read the news that a glass panel on deck 15 of Star of the Seas suddenly shattered on the morning of August 26th. So this just happened. It happened at around 10:30 a.m. Again, the glass panel was on deck 15. It just suddenly shattered, startling guests who were relaxing and tanning nearby. And by the way, this is from Cruise Hive. I love Cruise Hive. They always have some great news. Now, Star of the Seas is still in preview cruise mode, so it hasn't actually opened yet to just regular customers on cruises. So having this happen so soon, it was just a little bit alarming. But someone who was there was reported as saying, day 3 on Star of the Seas, while sitting on deck 15, I heard a pop, like a tire popped. It was tempered glass that shattered. And thankfully, there were no reported injuries to either guests or crew members. But in case you follow cruise news, it's been a bad time for Royal Caribbean. They keep having issues specifically with shattered glass. And it's happening enough that it's making me wonder what is going on with, I don't know where Royal is maybe sourcing the glass, or is it a design or installation problem? But as Cruise Hive noted, there have been multiple incidents of glass breaking on board Symphony of the Seas. There was a 3rd incident of the year that just unfolded earlier this month when a tempered glass panel, like on this situation, broke on deck 16 near the onboard zip line. And as I mentioned, of course, there was a water slide incident on Icon of the Seas, and at the beginning of June, a window in the Coastal Kitchen restaurant shattered. So it's a little concerning, especially because it's still unclear what is causing these glass breaks. I'll actually be on Utopia of the Seas in about 3.5 weeks, and Let's just say I'm going to be a little mindful of where I am in proximity to the glass, and I'm probably going to be staying off all of the water slides. But when it comes to cruise ship injuries, unfortunately, there have been some medical crises that have happened recently on a different cruise line, which would be Princess Cruise Lines. There were 2 simultaneous medical crises that struck Ruby Princess near Washington's Cape Flattery. The ship reported a 52-year-old woman in a sudden cardiac arrest and a 99-year-old man suffering from an obstruction of the esophagus. With both patients needing immediate evacuation, the U.S. Coast Guard called in the Canadian helicopter team. Canadian crews took the woman to a hospital in Victoria, British Columbia, while U.S. crews airlifted the man to Nia Bay, Washington. Now, this case, again, another stark reminder that medical evacuations at sea are not as uncommon as we wish that they were. And when they happen, it requires a coordinated effort, sometimes international teamwork, and they don't come cheap. Medical evacuations can cost tens of thousands of dollars and can financially devastate a cruiser. So it's always important to cruise with solid travel insurance. Again, I'm going to beat this drum. It's just so important. And I do have a travel guide for cruisers. I'll drop that link down in the comments. But on to something else that's a little less serious, but is still raising eyebrows nonetheless. Yes, there really is a cruise where clothing is optional, but it's not what you might think. The big nude boat returns next February on the Norwegian Pearl. This 11-day cruise departs Miami and calls at Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Ocho Rios, and Norwegian's private island, Great Stirrup Cay. Now, there are some rules. It's not just everybody flopping around everywhere. Passengers can be nude while at sea or at anchor, but they must be dressed when the ship docks in port. They also must sit on towels when they're bare, and there are strict etiquette rules. For example, clothes are required in the dining rooms, although the buffets are clothing optional. But then again, even on regular cruises, I've seen lots of cheeks in the cruise line buffet. So nothing extraordinary in my opinion. Organizers emphasize that it's non-sexual and is part of a close-knit community, with many passengers returning year after year after year. Now, those that are caught violating the rules, that can get you kicked off without a refund. It's verboten to violate these rules, and it's not considered cool to sexualize anyone or anything that's participating in this. Now, for some, the cruise is all about body positivity with freedom. For others, it's a hard pass and a big fat no. So I want to know, would you ever book a nude cruise? Or would you prefer your wardrobe to include more than just sunscreen and a beach towel? Now let's talk about another mega ship, Wonder of the Seas. This behemoth cruise ship just moved home ports. It shifted from Port Canaveral to Miami, opening up 3- and 4-night itineraries to Perfect Day at Coco Cay and Nassau. Now, the reason for this is that its sister ship, the new-to-launch Star of the Seas, will take over longer sailings from Port Canaveral. This move gives cruisers the chance to get a little taste of a floating city on a big ship, not just an old, sad, tired, dated ship, for a long weekend escape. On the ship, you can ride the Ultimate Abyss slide. Just hope it doesn't shatter when you're on it. I'm sorry, Royal Caribbean, but you gotta fix the glass thing. Stroll through a park on Deck 8 or savor fresh Central Park style sushi, all without committing to a full week away. Now, I know a lot of cruisers love these shorter sailings on these nicer, bigger, newer ships because not everyone has the luxury of getting away from work and home obligations for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days. So if you're like me, and I do like some of these shorter getaways, but I like the amenities of the big ships, I find this to be welcome news. But I know a lot of cruise enthusiasts and those that are loyal to Royal don't necessarily love this because they prefer the longer itineraries. They claim that it brings nicer crowds of people that don't drink as much, they aren't as booze cruisy, they aren't as unruly, people are better behaved, there aren't as many kids running around. But I want to know what you think. Do you think that cruise lines should continue putting their big ships on the smaller, shorter sailings? Do you like that variety, or do you prefer the big, nicer, fancier ships to stick with the longer cruises? Let me know in the comments and let's talk ship. Now moving on to Miami, a trio of Carnival passengers were arrested after investigators discovered that they had used more than $30,000 in fraudulently purchased gift cards to pay for their cruise. What a dumb move. Authorities say the culprits bought gift cards at Winn-Dixie with an altered Bolivian bank card and used them to pay for their cruise on Carnival Sunrise. A third suspect was later caught trying to buy yet another gift card. Customs agents found the cards and the altered bank card when the ship docked, and all 3 were detained on $10,000 bonds. But it's truly astonishing to see people risk criminal charges over a vacation. But I can't blame people for feeling like they need to rob and steal to afford a Carnival cruise these days, because Carnival be nickel and diming. I do have another bit of breaking news I wanted to share that I just saw yesterday. Actually, I made a video about it. But Carnival Ambassador John Heald announced a new addition to the Carnival fleet, a new food option. Now, some people always celebrate new food options. They think it's great, they think it's awesome. But some people are a little more critical, and I want to know what you think. But anyway, John Heald posted, "Coming to your cruise very soon." Here's the post, all right? So it's donuts and beignets, good morning fun treats. So Carnival is now offering donuts in cinnamon sugar, powdered sugar, Boston cream, and glazed, and they are made to order and served warm, which sounds delightful. And beignets, which are covered with powdered sugar. They come with strawberry sauce, chocolate sauce, and I think caramel. It doesn't say on here, but I've had Carnival beignets before, and I think caramel is an option too. And then churros. Freshly fried golden churros rolled in cinnamon sugar. Now that sounds pretty awesome, right? I don't know anyone that would have a quibble with donuts, beignets, and churros, especially freshly made and served warm. But the problem that a lot of cruisers have is that they're not free. Carnival is charging for these things, and in fact, they're not necessarily affordable. The donuts, for example, are 2 for $4. The beignets are 4 for $3.50, not terrible. And the churros are 5 for $3. Or you can do the breakfast combo, which is $7, which gets you 2 donuts and 4 beignets. Now, whether or not it's a good deal in price, that's debatable. But the big issue here is whether or not Carnival is continuing on the right path or not by nickel and diming their customers. Carnival cruisers, like me, who have been pretty loyal, have been frustrated with Carnival, including the launch of Celebration Key, which is their new private destination, where basically everything costs money. And earlier this summer, they announced a very wildly unpopular overhaul to their VIFP program, affecting significantly in a negative way their most loyal cruisers. And this on top of that, for a lot of people, just feels like another hit from Carnival. So I want to know, do you welcome these new food additions on Carnival cruise ships, or is it just more nickel and diming? And by the way, some of these things are not new. I've had the beignets before on the Excel class ships, but this is a fleet-wide thing. Now moving on to another cruise line, let's talk Disney. During a sailing of Disney Wish after leaving Nassau, an announcement was made echoing through the ship, a man overboard alert. And unfortunately, we seem to have had a lot of these this summer. Now, following protocol, crews tossed life rings and launched their rescue boat and their protocol. The captain turned the ship around. The guests were captivated, following the news, expecting the worst. But then hours later, Disney Cruise Line confirmed that all passengers and crew were accounted for and the search was canceled. So come to find out, it was likely a false alarm triggered by debris in the water. Now, these alerts feel like the worst nightmare ever, but they do demonstrate how prepared crews are for real emergencies. Now, this was a false alarm, but it is heartening as a frequent cruiser to see how well prepared these crew are to handle these situations, because usually, unfortunately, it actually is a real man overboard situation. So I want to know, have you ever experienced a man overboard on a ship? I've personally experienced lots of medical emergencies. I've yet to see an actual medevac. Hopefully I never do. I've also yet to see a man overboard, and also hopefully I never do. Now moving on to Margaritaville at Sea. By the way, my booking partner just took her first Margaritaville at Sea cruise. She did it back-to-back, and she had a lot of the stereotypes about Margaritaville at Sea, thinking, okay, it's not a great cruise line. And she actually had an amazing time and really loved the experience. So I'm starting to personally open up a little bit more and be open to maybe considering a Margaritaville cruise, but we'll see. But anyway, I digress. Margaritaville at Sea has revived its Paradise Pass program. Now this is really interesting. They're offering a silver pass from $799 that offers unlimited 2- and 3-night weekend cruises with a companion through December of 2026. Pass holders will receive a $25 casino free play per trip and discounts on their onboard purchases. The new Ultimate Gold Pass option, it's a little more expensive, it's $1,499, but this expands the benefit to cruises up to 7 nights with a $50 casino credit and even stronger, deeper discounts on board. Both of these passes allow you to also add extra guests for an additional fee in addition to the companion that's included, and you get to book as often as you like, as long as the voyages are non-consecutive, so no stacking back-to-backs. Now, for many, it might sound like it's too good to be true, and I got sucked into the Frontier Go Wild All-You-Can-Fly pass. I bought it in December, and I've yet to use it, and I probably won't. So I fall into these little marketing gimmicks sometimes too, but I think for the right person and the right circumstances, it can be a good deal. Now in this case, you do still pay for taxes and port fees, and blackout dates do apply. But if you're a frequent cruiser, you live near West Palm Beach or Tampa, it might be a really smoking deal for you. So I want to know, is this something that would appeal to you, or do you think it's just another gimmick?